Welcome back to another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Corey, Jason, Dylan, Mel, John, Pauline, ready to bring you some AL East action. First off, though, guys, do you want to talk about Major League Baseball's next big pitcher, Joey Gallo? White Sox released him. He decided not ready to hang it up yet. Going to rival Ohtani for the next great dual threat athlete in Major League Baseball. He's not the only one, though. Tyler Naquin, he signed with Cleveland. He's now a pitcher instead of an outfielder. What are the chances this works out for Mr. Gallo?
0.
0?
Yeah.
1%.
No, not even. I give it a 1% shot that he works out as a hitter again in the MLB.
I feel so bad because I really liked him when he was with the Rangers, and then as soon as he went to the Yankees, it feels like his career ended.
Yep. Like all classic power hitters, as soon as the Yankees get them, somehow they stink.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a lefty power bat in the Yankees bandbox, like Death Valley out there.
Yeah.
Like, you see that Alex Verdugo still hasn't gotten a major league offer yet?
That's crazy.
Not surprised.
Two players that were starting for the Yankees in the World Series last year aren't on a major league roster.
Rizzo's old, to be fair.
Yes, but still, to not even get like a spring training invite somewhere to try.
Yeah, I'm shocked that the Yankees and or Cubs didn't just give him a spring training invite to at least show off his skills.
And then Verdugo, who was starting in left field, he's not old.
Yeah, he's just not good.
He disappointed severely.
Paul Goldschmidt's older than Rizzo.
Yeah,
playing
Paul Goldschmidt's
that's like weird.
But Paul Goldschmidt plays baseball.
I mean, basically, what happened with Rizzo is he got a concussion. Fernando Tatis's knee hit him in the head. And
I love Rizzo.
Into literal mozzarella, though. Like,
I love Rizzo, but Paul Goldschmidt over the last 2 years has undeniably been a much better baseball player.
Even like the first half last year for Goldschmidt was better than anything Rizzo had done the last couple of years.
I agree.
Lawrence Butler, I don't know if you guys saw this. He signed an extension with the A's, one of the next young superstars possibly, to get locked up. 7 years, $65.5 million, buys out some arbitration, and I think a year or two of free agency. Love when teams do that. It benefits both sides. It's a risk and still allows a player to hit free agency at some point. Wish it works out when my team does it, though. Patrick Corbin signed 1 year, $1 million with the Rangers. He's off the board now. Craig Kimbrell and James McCann back with the Braves. Good to see Kimbrell go back to where it all started. Those are minor league deals. And the Dodgers, I don't know if you guys noticed, baseball started.
1-0.
Tokyo series. Dodgers, the Cubs 4-1. They're 1-0 to start the year. But what do you guys think? Should they open up the season in another country a week before, the rest of the team start, or should this be more of an exhibition series where it doesn't actually count?
I don't mind it counting. Over 162, I don't think it's really that big of a deal.
But for like America's pastime, and I was seeing a lot of this argument on Twitter, it's America's pastime, have opening day.
It's America's pastime, but they are giving the very heavily Japanese-influenced teams this spot.
Right.
I think this should continue to be Dodgers versus Cubs, Dodgers versus, we know that based on Yamamoto, Sasaki, Ohtani, that the Dodgers are going to be the most Japanese influenced team. Whatever the second team is, I think that this is the time of year to do it, because you're not going to do it in the middle of the season and ask these guys to adjust coming back, and you're not going to do it at the end of the season right before postseason play. This is the time of year to do it. It's a 3-game set out of 162. It's not, an NFL situation where each week, each game is so much more desperately important. These are fine to have overseas.
The only argument I have against, the Dodgers doing it every year is it would create a very unfair media pipeline with the Dodgers in Japan, where they should try to promote other teams. Like
double-edged sword, because on the other side, who do those fans over there want to see?
Right, but you want to create fans for other teams. Let there be a a Rockies Red Sox series out
I
there.
don't think this is about fans, Corey. I think this is about the money.
Right,
And
but
it's all about money. This series is
it's
just
about
about money.
money, but you're going to get issues then with the next CBA with, other owners being upset about the revenue that's generated solely to the Dodgers and how it creates an unfair pipe. It's going to create issues if they keep featuring the Dodgers solely in Japan just because they have Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki.
Yeah.
You need to be able to do it for all teams because there's no reason that the White Sox or the Rangers or the Rays shouldn't be able to be competitive in the Japanese market, especially since you can watch any team in any game anytime.
That's fair.
But I saw some people saying that they should do this going in or out of the All-Star break. I don't know if I like that as much.
I don't hate it. What's the climate like in Japan that time of the year? That'd be my one question because I know there was a similar thought to the NFL in their Brazil game, but after discussing with some people that lived in Brazil, I found out that if you did that game in the middle of the season in October, it's like 100 degrees in Brazil and it would have been like impossible playing conditions. So it has to be the first week of the NFL season. I wonder on the other side of the world how much humidity we're looking at in Japan.
Yeah, I don't think it would be anything crazy just because they still play their season the same time we play ours.
Oh, maybe that's what it is then, scheduling conflicts, but I
That's the
don't
only
know.
thing.
Yeah.
For the money, though, I'm sure they could figure out a way to make it work to
Right.
get Otani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki and the
I,
Dodgers in that building.
I just don't like playing like the international games like during the season because I feel like it just takes teams and players like out of it.
Yeah, the London
I
series.
mean it's just I'd rather them like I think it's more beneficial to the teams and players if you do it like the earlier the better.
Yeah.
Especially if you can do it during
Yeah,
like whenever other teams doing spring training, so you have enough time to you know readjust and get back in. It's like you never really left.
I do think that this would be better served as an exhibition series instead of like games that count just because you're starting the season off with games that most people aren't going to be able to watch. It's 3 a.m. in LA time.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's
It's
not
like
really
kind of
fair
like
to the fans that are going to be paying and watching the games most of the season. You should cater to your own fan base first. And a 3 a.m. game is kind of insane. They should also bring back things that they used to do where almost like a traveling all-star game. You bring a team of, the 25, 26, 30 best players that want to do it and have them play exhibition games across the world in the off season. Kind of grow it that way. They used to do that a lot.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
I don't hate that idea, especially because a lot of players play in like other leagues anyway in the off season.
Right. You know, you can have it where, you save some pitching, let it be more like an amateur and pro combination, or there's some way to go about it where guys aren't getting hurt and the risk isn't as high. But that's one way to grow the game and expand, what players and what people are seeing the players without it having a real negative impact on the actual consumer base in North America. But let's go on to the AL East. I know Dylan's itching to talk some Yankees. Last year, 2024, the Yankees did make it to the World Series. We don't have to talk about what happened after that, but they did make it. They won the AL pennant, 94-68 record. Baltimore had a bit of a disappointing year following a big breakout in 2023, 91-71. They were a wild card team. Haven't won a playoff game either the last 2 years, the
I
Orioles.
think they're on a 10-game playoff losing streak.
Yeah, they haven't won, I think, since 2014. Red Sox won 81-81. The Rays 80-82. The Blue Jays 74-88. Out of those five teams, which of those were the most surprising outcome from last season?
Red
Uh,
Sox.
I think Tampa. I'm Tampa was a team that I was convinced every single uh year was just going to be good no matter what they looked like on paper. And last year it kind of finally caught up to them that they just didn't have the talent to stack up.
I feel like the Red Sox played a lot better than I thought they would. I just didn't see them being like, what are the 80-win team like at all. Like I thought they'd be down I thought they'd be doing what the Rays did last year almost.
Yeah, for me, it's the Orioles. I thought they would have been a juggernaut last year. They were very disappointing injuries. The pitching didn't hold up. But then again, I could also say the Yankees because I didn't think that they were going to, win the division or even come in second place last year. I was a little down on them, and they ended up winning the division and winning the pennant.
You're always down on the Yankees though. Like
I
you're
used to be
always
very,
down.
I used to be very high on the Yankees, and they've just shown me year after year that they don't deserve it. But
yeah, trip to the World Series and lost to the super team of our generation.
You had them losing like in the playoffs. Like every time we did a show, it was like who do you have winning? It's like Yankees are gonna lose.
And then he finally picked the Yankees, and they finally
and
got him.
Lost.
that was my bad. I should have picked the Dodgers. You guys bullied me into picking the Yankees. Because how do you not pick your own team in the World Series?
Well, hopefully you don't pick them to win the division. Then they'll do it again.
We'll find out. Blue Jays, they added Anthony Santander, 5 years, $92.5 million. Reliever Jeff Hoffman, 3 years, $33. Reliever Yimi Garcia, 2 for $7.5. Max Scherzer starting for them now, 1 for $15. They also brought in reliever Dylan Tate, 1 year, $1.4 million. They made a couple big trades. They brought in Andres Jimenez from Cleveland along with Miles Straw. They got Nick Sandin in a three-team trade with the Pirates and Cleveland. But they lost Jordan Romano to Philadelphia. Spencer Horwitz went away in that trade for Nick Sandin. Which of these moves is probably like the biggest, most needle mover for you, if any of them move the needle at all?
I think Santander could be the biggest needle mover, right? This is a 40 home run guy last year. Big problem in the Blue Jays lineup, I felt, was just a strong run. Bichette and Guerrero Jr. are great. Springer's not in there often enough. Having Bichette, Guerrero, and Santander all back to back presents a major challenge. Santander, a switch hitter as well, so can get you from both sides of the plate. If he is the player he was last year for Baltimore, Toronto, I think, could be the biggest monkey wrench in this division.
Yeah, I think Andres Jimenez is another one that really can move it for me because he just adds another layer of consistency playing second base for them.
Solid infield defense with him and Bichette too.
Infielder. Yeah, pair him with Bichette, Guerrero. He's somebody that's going to be more than capable with the bat. Surprisingly, has a little bit more pop than you'd think, but he's just very consistent all around, and he really deepens their lineup.
I'm just down on the Blue Jays. I don't.
Oh, come on, John.
I'm just really down.
There's no needle mover.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like it would be. I mean, at the most, Santander is the most, but like that's one player. What's one player gonna do? I mean,
guess we'll find out what Juan Soto does for the Mets when we talk about them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it with the Blue Jays this year. I mean,
well, how about this? What move would you have liked to have seen them make that could have been a needle mover that was out there for them?
No, they should just trade it away, everyone. Just
what about when they were the stalking horse for Juan Soto, or when they were the stalking horse for Corbin Burns, or when they were the stalking?
I don't know why they're always in those talks. I feel like it's
because they have a ton of money that they're willing to spend. It's not their fault. It's really not their fault. Nobody wants to go play there.
Should we make fun of them as much as we made fun of like the Giants?
No. The Blue Jays try, and the Blue Jays offer more money than other teams, and it just doesn't matter. I'm pretty confident that Soto said that the Blue Jays offered him more money than the Mets, and he still went to the Mets. Ohtani, his last two offers were from the Blue Jays and the Dodgers because the Blue Jays were the only people keeping up financially with the Dodgers. Like, this team has money and is willing to spend it, but nobody wants to go and play in Toronto because of how different and how high the taxes are. They are a leg behind in terms of just how much extra the Toronto tax is real.
I just
It's just
I
funny
just
how they're just used. Nobody seriously wants them. Otani's on the flight to Toronto.
Yeah, that was great. Twitter for a little bit last year.
But how about the Rays? Another team that, kind of disappointed. They added in Ha-Sung Kim to play middle infield, 2 years, 29 million. They brought Danny Jansen in to catch, 1 year, 8.5. Eloy Jimenez got a minor league deal. Alex Fado, they got him in a trade with the Tigers as a reliever. They also lost Dylan Carlson to Baltimore. Elvin Rodriguez, a starter, went to Milwaukee. Jose Siri got traded to the Mets. That's a sneaky move to the Mets we'll talk about when we talk about the NL East. And Jeffrey Springs, a pitcher, got traded to the A's. I don't know about you guys. I'm really intrigued by the Eloy Jimenez signing because he's somebody who I always thought should be a really solid major leaguer, and he was for a while with the White Sox. And now that they're playing in, Yankee Stadium pretty much down in Tampa, since they don't have their own stadium, I think he could make some noise if he ever makes it to the major league roster.
Yeah, I think that is true. I really think their biggest addition is a player who was already on the roster, and Shane McClanahan coming back. The ace of their staff is back. This is a guy who will be competing for the Cy Young, and we're giving the awards out later. But he's a guy that I took a serious look at for that award.
Oh no, I just don't think the Rays did enough. I really don't. I'm down on the Rays and the Blue Jays.
Well, how
I
about
just
this?
don't.
You got the Red Sox, right? Alex Bregman joined up, 3 years, 120. Patrick Sandoval to pitch a little bit, 2 years, 18 and a quarter. Justin Wilson to relieve, 1 year, 2 and a quarter. Aroldis Chapman, anybody? 1 year, 7.5. Walker Buehler basically signed the qualifying offer, but with the Red Sox, 21 year, 21.05 million. They also traded for Garrett Crochet. Now, this trade basically was Crochet to the Red Sox. The White Sox get Kyle Teal, who was a catcher and the number 25 overall prospect. They got Braden Montgomery, who was the 54 overall prospect. Chase Meredith, who was Boston's number 11 prospect. And Wilkelman Gonzalez, who was Boston's number 14. This was a very, very big trade, 8 years after the Chris Sale trade from the White Sox to the Red Sox. Now, they did lose a couple guys. Nick Pivetta, we talked about. He signed with the Padres on a mind-boggling deal. Tyler O'Neill, he went to Baltimore. Kenley Jansen to the Angels. Danny Jansen, we just said he went to Tampa. Chris Martin to Texas. Lucas Sims to Washington. And Justin Hagenman to the Mets. Outside of Crochet, because I do want to talk about Crochet. John, do any of these move the needle for you? Or are you down to the Red Sox
yeah,
too?
all of them. I'm actually high. I'm actually up on the. Yeah, I'm high on the Red Sox this year. I do like the Red Sox. I do like the Bregman thing. That's a huge thing because Rafael Devers was just not doing it at third base.
Well, Rafael Devers still plays third base.
That's the thing. Like, I think that's their
if you ask
biggest. Yeah.
Rafael Devers, he plays third, man. So.
See, I think that's going to be Boston's biggest hurdle this year is if they can get Rafael Devers to play another position. Because I think he's like I think the worst defensive third baseman.
He is
in the league. I think somewhere like he's like the lowest rated defensive third baseman in the league. I think so. Like if they can like somehow get him to move for for Bregman. I mean, that would be insane, and that's like their biggest hurdle. Like literally, I think that's going to be one of their biggest issues this season is just getting Devers to move.
That's the luck to him.
But I do like getting Crochet. I like them getting Bregman. Like I think those are two great additions, and I think that helps them out a lot because they get younger with the pitching there, and that's what they wanted. That was their biggest issue for the longest time is like their age. So they got a little younger there. So and you would think hopefully they fix their third base issue, but I don't know. That's up to Devers.
I kind of like it though, because if Devers moves to first base, they're not going to be in on Vladdy.
Yeah, I still think in a perfect world, Devers for them is DH and Casas is or Casas. I'm terrible on the
I
pronunciation,
think it's
but
Cassis.
yeah,
Cassis.
yeah,
Yeah.
Casas. He'll be the first baseman there. It pains me to say it. I love everything the Sox did this offseason. I think they threw themselves right there in World Series contender
Yep.
category, especially if the lineup can keep hitting the way that they were, especially in the second half of last year. They improved pitching. They have a solid bullpen. The lineup 1 through 9 can all produce. This has all the makings of a team that can compete for a World Series.
I mean, we've been texting about it all off season every time they made a move. And let's focus in on that, Garrett Crochet trade, because as much as he was great last year was his first real full, healthy, elite season. Can we trust him to do it again? He's only done it once. And we've
And
seen pitchers have that magic year and kind of take a step back. Now, I think he will repeat it, whether it's this year or next year. And I do think the Red Sox should be looking into extending him, and I am shocked they haven't done it already. I really think that he might take a small step back this year, but his future, I think he's going to be a definite 1A type of ace.
yeah, he's another guy. There's a couple Cy Young contenders in this AL East. McClanahan and Crochet are certainly at the top of the list.
All right, let's go on to the Orioles. I know John's really excited to talk about his birds. They added in Tyler O'Neill, 3 years, 49.5 million. Dylan Carlson, 1 year, 975K. Ramon Laureano, 1 year, 4 million. Gary Sanchez, our old friend, 1 year, 8.5 million. So glad they moved the fence back in as soon as he gets there. Andrew Kitteridge to relieve for them, 1 year, 10 million. Charlie Morton, 1 year, 15. Old man Charlie still kicking. Tomoyuki Sugano, one of the guys that came over from Japan, 1 year, 13 million. He was a longtime ace over there, a very respected pitcher. He's 35 years old. Major league career won't be too long, but it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts there. But the players they lost are really big names. Corbin Burns went to Arizona. Santander went to Toronto, like we said. Danny Colomé went to Minnesota. Austin Slater to the White Sox. Jacob Webb to Texas. John Means, who I really, really love as a starter. He's going to try to reinvent himself in Cleveland in their pitching factory. And then Eloy Jimenez went to Tampa. Do we think the Orioles added in enough to supplement the talent they lost? Or do they have enough prospects that could take over that slack and kind of bring them back to the level everybody expected them to be at?
I think the next step for them is for their prospects to come up and step up. Like that's their thing. That's the next step. For the team is you gotta let your prospects come up and do their
Yep.
thing. You had to let them go. I mean, I wish they would have did a little bit more. Going after starting pitching.
Hmm.
But you have to remember that. But you have Felix Batista, I believe, is coming back again for them this year, so that's going to
Yep.
help them out a ton. If he's pitching how he was like a couple years ago, so like that'll
Yep.
really help them. And I think you just let the prospects do their thing. I mean,
We say that, but they did just assign Kobe Mayo to the minor leagues. He's not starting up with the major league roster. So that's a sign that they're not really going full youth movement.
I mean that's not unusual though to like send prospects down for the start of the season and have them come up like May and stuff. It's not unusual. So I don't think like I think it's still a possibility you go full youth by the end of the season. So
Yeah. I don't think Baltimore really is gonna skip a beat lineup wise. They still have Gunnar Henderson, MVP level player, Adley Rutschman, one of the best catchers in all of baseball. Tyler O'Neill, who they brought in from Boston, he's a guy who I could see hitting 25, 30 homers. Jackson Holiday, how does he develop? Cedric Mullins, he's still got something in that bat. Mountcastle, I like Colton Cowser. For me, the biggest loss for this team was Corbin Burns. And it wasn't just that they lost Burns, it's that they did absolutely nothing to replace him.
I mean, that was shocking, wasn't it?
yeah, Like I thought
What
they.
are we looking at Zach Eflin as the ace of this staff?
I mean, do you go Gray Rod just because of the potential?
I mean, maybe he gets there, but
I mean,
opening day,
that's
I
who
don't
they're
did they
hoping.
announce their opening day starter? Is it Grayson Rodriguez? Is
I
it
don't
Zach
know.
Eflin?
I think it might
I mean, not that
be
that's necessarily
Grayson.
the ace of the staff, because we'll talk
Well,
about
that's
that
who
with
they
the
want
Yankees.
to be. They want Grayson Rodriguez to be their
It
ace.
is Zach Eflin. I believe. Yeah, it's Zach Eflin.
Yeah. Not that that
Well,
defines who's the best
No,
pitcher
of
in your
course.
staff,
no.
obviously, as we'll talk about with New York.
But Burns is a bigger loss than Santander.
For sure. Because you brought in Tyler O'Neill, who is going to give you, 85% of what Santander did last year.
I mean, I agree. And I'm just shocked at how they just would not retain Corbin Burns. I thought that was almost like a foregone conclusion. New ownership group that was saying that they're ready to spend, and then you
Yeah.
let out a bona fide ace.
And then don't bring
So,
anybody in. We
no,
talked about it in the offseason. Blake Snell, that was a target for this team as
Max
well.
Fried.
Max Fried,
Flattery. Like,
Flaherty. They
Yeah.
didn't even bring in supplemental guys like Pavetta. Like
A Walker
they
Bueller
just
would have been
Walker
fantastic.
Bueller. Yeah.
didn't fill out this rotation. And there are one or two injuries away from their starting
Right.
pitching really making it so their offense has to score 6-7 runs to win games consistently.
Right, like we've seen, and we'll talk about the Yankees in a second, their starting pitching injury. If the Orioles had to face even half of the issues the Yankees are facing in the rotation, what would we be talking about them like?
I think they'd be on the brink of elimination from playoffs in our eyes. I mean, we'll get to our predictions coming up, but personally, I don't have them winning the division. They're already in the wild card spot for me. So you see one or two starting pitching injuries
Yeah.
in a very competitive AL East, it could be the death of you.
Now, let's go on to the Yankees, and we're going to talk the Yankees a little differently than we do the other teams, just because this is my team. This is Dylan's team. It deserves the respect that, we want to give it. So let's go with each of the major free agents they sign and kind of talk about them and what we think they're going to kind of be like, starting with Max Fried. Starting pitcher, 8 years, 218. A bit of a surprising signing, I would say, when they brought him in originally. Just wasn't on my radar that
It was
they
a
were
move I had touted. I thought it made sense. I thought
right.
I thought we had kind of talked about it because when the Soto domino had fallen, we had both agreed
Yeah.
zig instead of zag. Don't go for Santander, don't go for hitting, go for pitching. And
Go
that's
for
what they did.
and the whole Cole, situation where he opted out but actually didn't file the paperwork to opt out because of the elbow issue. Garrett Cole now getting Tommy John. He did get the same surgery that Otani got, that new one where they add a brace to the arm that instead of a 18-month recovery that we've seen for the longest time, it's a 12-month recovery. So we could be seeing Cole first half next season.
Yep.
Like he'll be throwing late spring training possibly.
Yeah. Obviously, that's a massive disaster for the Yankees in terms of contending for a World Series now. Garrett Cole, mid 30s, Aaron Judge, early to mid 30s, depending on how you want to categorize that.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Stanton, who knows? This team's a veteran squad, and they have some baby bombers that we'll talk about coming up and that need to produce. But
It's
Max
funny.
Fried walks in and
Yeah.
he's paid ace money, and now he's an ace
He's
pitcher.
I mean, they are a veteran squad, but they're also one of the younger teams too in the league. They do have
Yeah.
a lot of young players. Like Volpe is, I think, 23, and it feels like he's been in the league 7 years already at this point.
Yeah, Oswaldo Cabrera, young. Jason
Yeah.
Dominguez, young. Jazz Chisholm, still pretty young. Austin
Austin
Wells,
Wells.
young. Luis Heel, rookie of the year last year.
So you do have more youth than you think. But the Yankees with Max Fried, I think that was a really smart signing,
Yeah,
especially
and
if
he's been the ace of an Atlanta Braves staff before
yeah.
that's gone onto some deep playoff runs. So, this isn't a new role for him.
And just being able to be paired with Rodon, who I think is going to have another solid year. He was fine last year. I had no issues with how he performed. bounced back incredibly well from a really bad first year with the Yankees.
Yep.
And a lot of credit to him for being able to mentally handle that and bounce back and be a strong contributor.
For sure.
But then you also have them bringing back Tim Hill 1 year, 2.85, a move that we were saying for a few weeks, just do it. You need a lefty in the pen. He was really solid. Jonathan Loizaga 1 year, $5 million. He's a guy that I personally have always thought the talent was there.
Super high ceiling.
And then Goldie. Instead of Rizzo, you bring Goldschmidt in 1 year, 12.5. Dylan, do you think that was the right move?
Listen, again, I love Anthony Rizzo, respect everything he did as a leader for the Yankees. He was a terrible, terrible player last year. Shell of himself. Every advanced metric you look at was a negative. The Yankees were better at first base with Oswaldo Cabrera and Ben Rice. And that's saying something. Those guys weren't perfect at the spot, but if Paul Goldschmidt can give you what he gave you last year, if he could bat 250 and hit 20 homers and get to 70 RBIs, that is a massive increase in just production for the Yankees at first base, let alone if Goldschmidt has just a resurgent 270 season with 30 homers and a short porch. Like, it's possible, but I think just general basic good production is an upgrade at first base for them.
Do you remember the last Yankee first baseman home run?
DJ LeMahieu versus the Phillies.
John, do you remember that? It was versus the Phillies.
Was it a grand slam too?
It was a grand slam versus the Phillies in Philadelphia.
That was the day after I was at that Phillies Yankees game that ended up being the longest game of the season. That went
when Leiter came in for the first time.
Yeah, I was there for that game because
Did
that
Will
was
Warren start that one.
Yeah, because it was the day of the trade deadline. So I was there and I had bought the tickets a month prior, not even looking at the date. And then I saw a trade deadline and I'm like, crap. Because I know the Yankees are going to make moves, meaning the guys that they make moves for probably won't be on the team yet. And I was like, meaning I'm probably going to see some BS lineup. But they traded for Jazz prior. So I got to see Jazz. And I think he might have homered twice in that game.
He did. No, he was on that hot streak.
Yeah, so that was really, really solid. You didn't mention Devin Williams. I didn't know if you were getting to him.
I was going to get to him. I was just kind of going over the major league signings and minor league signings because I want to talk more about that trade.
Mm-hmm.
They also brought in Carlos Carrasco, who's probably going to be in our starting rotation to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, do I love it? No, but is that why you bring in a veteran arm? Yeah, like he's looked solid throughout spring training, and he's not a beat. Like even with the Cole injury, when the Yankees are right and Schmidt and Heel are healthy, like Carrasco's a long reliever, but there's a reason you have guys like him on the roster, and this is that reason. 3 starting pitchers of your 5 in rotation are already hurt.
And with one of the 2 remaining having had career injury histories, both of them really, Rodon outside the last 3 years have had major injury history, and Fried.
Yeah,
it's not like you have the healthy workhorses there. So bringing in a guy like Carrasco is a smart, savvy move, and if he can be an innings eater,
that's
keep you in the ball game.
And we'll talk about it, but the Yankees bullpen is just fine for a guy like Carrasco.
Yes. And then Tyler Matzik from the Braves, another guy who I think is a very fun addition.
Yep.
He's pitched in big games. He can handle it. And then Dom Smith, who will be our opening day DH if I had to take a guess.
Lefty, short porch, been hitting well in the early part of the year. It wouldn't shock me.
Now, we did make a couple trades. First trade, let's talk Devin Williams in that bullpen. Yankees get him from Milwaukee. He sets the world on fire, changing the Yankees' beard policy. Milwaukee gets Nestor Cortez, who the Yankees probably wish they still had, Caleb Durbin, and Cash. Yeah, the Yankees talked up Durbin and basically talked his status into existence.
Yeah, that was great PR from the Yankees. I bet they wish they had Nestor, but I don't think they would rescind the trade. Devin Williams is a top 2, maybe not 2 closer in all of baseball.
He's
and to have
number 2 behind Clase.
And to have a combination of him and Luke Weaver, I don't think there's a better 1-2 punch to close out a game in a bullpen right now. I think you could argue the Dodgers with Scott and his name's Tryon.
Like trying to,
But
yeah.
you could argue that is higher level, and maybe that's just my little Yankee bias coming in there. But I thought Weaver was a top 7 closer in baseball last year, and
I
I
haven't really
thought,
done it for like 6 weeks, not even.
yeah, and recency bias, but in all playoff facets, that guy was an absolute unit. So him in a setup role, I'm real interested to see it.
What do you think about the bullpen as a whole?
I think it's the best bullpen in the AL East. I think
Just the AL East?
I think the AL. I was just we were talking about
Yeah.
the AL East. I still think the Dodgers probably top to bottom is a better bullpen. I think the Yankees' path to success is pitching this year, and I think the bullpen being so strong means that they could weather a storm early on. You remember Garrett Cole missed the first few months of
Yep.
last year, and this team still won the division. So it's not like this team can't make it to the deadline without Garrett Cole. It'll be about where's this team at the deadline and what they do there, because I do think they're still a piece away from being a true World Series winning team. But I love the foundation that's laid down. I think that they've set themselves up to potentially capitalize on a San Diego Padres blow up, or a team that isn't performing at its highest level, wanting to move off of one of their players. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the moves that have been made. You lose Juan Soto, who's a top 5 player in the sport. It's usually hard to rebound from that, but I think overall this is a better roster when healthy. Obviously,
They
not
brought
with Cole.
they brought their floor up.
Mhm.
Their ceiling might not be as high, but that floor, that base that they can get to is much, much higher. They also traded for Cody Bellinger, a guy that apparently, according to Brian Cashman, has been begging to be a Yankee for years. Scott Boras was in Cashman's ear, get him here. Why aren't you getting him here? He wants to be here. They
He
finally
is
got him here.
he is the most important player to the Yankee season.
I think that is a very, very fair statement, because if he's right and he plays at that MVP level that he has, they should be more than fine.
Yeah, if they can, I mean, obviously, if they get an MVP level season, they're a World Series contending team. But if they just get Cody Bellinger from the past 2 years, that is huge to have in the middle of that lineup behind Aaron Judge, because at the end of the day, Judge is going to go back to 2. So now it's not Judge behind Soto, it's somebody else behind Aaron Judge. And that's going to be the guy that gets the pitches to hit.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to pitch to Judge. Cody Bellinger is going to be the guy that gets the opportunity to succeed. What he does with it will determine a lot of games.
Now, we did talk about the Yankees losing some players. Well, first off, there was one more trade, I should say. The Yankees traded away Jose Trevino. They brought in Fernando Cruz and Alex Jackson from the Reds. Now, Alex Jackson, I don't even think makes the roster. I think he was kind of just a throw in.
Yeah, Fernando Cruz, though, again, a Matt Blake specialty.
Yeah, he's an older reliever, but he's somebody who's got insane strikeout numbers, insane velocity, insane movement. Just doesn't have the control. Put that together, you could be cooking with something. Now, again, they did lose some players. Juan Soto went to the Mets. Clay Holmes went to the Mets and is now a starter.
Their opening day starter.
I really feel bad for laughing at it, but you have to laugh. Like, he went from being the Yankees closer to losing the job to Mets opening day starter.
Listen, I'm not preying on his downfall, but a guy that was called Cardiac Clay because he
Yeah,
gave Yankees fans heart attacks every time he went out there, becoming the Mets opening day starter in one off season, is objectively hilarious.
it's really, really funny. And then Gleyber Torres went to the Tigers. They were the only team that offered him the second base spot. Everybody else, like the Washington Nationals, offered him more money to play third. He said no. Tommy Kahnle, who I would have liked back, went to the Tigers, but
He
you
got
can't
a
really.
bag.
But
From
also, you
Detroit.
can't pair him with Devin Williams. That's too change-up heavy in a bullpen. You do want to change arm slots and pitches.
You could have alternated days, but I still think for the money that Canely got for not being in your
Yeah.
lane A setup guy like he was last year. He was your 8th inning guy before Weaver. Now he would have been your rest day 8th inning guy.
And he's somebody who I expect to have his 4th stint with the Yankees at some point.
Yeah, if things go south for the Tigers, I could
Yeah.
see him
Just an Adam
back in New
Warren type
York.
career. John Birdie went to the Cubs. He was a guy thought he was going to do a lot
Great
better.
utility guy for them.
But somebody we didn't talk about was Marcus Stroman. And for somebody who Yankee fans, rightfully so, thought was going to get traded, he made a lot of money. They didn't seem to have a spot for him in the rotation.
Boy, did one open up.
My favorite
3 opened up.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Stroman is he wanted to be a Yankee years ago, and Cashman said, if we signed you and we made the playoffs, you would be a reliever. You'd be in the bullpen. You wouldn't be a starter. And Stroman got very upset about that and started trashing the Yankees when he signed with the Mets.
Yeah.
A couple years later, he's a Yankee. The Yankees make the playoffs. He's in the bullpen, not even getting to pitch a game in the playoffs. I think he's the only pitcher on the roster without an inning.
He did, though, have an interview in spring training this year where at that point in time, the Yankees rotation was healthy, or so we thought. And he was asked about being a long reliever, and he said no. And then somebody followed up with, what if that was your role in the postseason? And he said, that's fine in the postseason. In the postseason, whatever you could do to win, that's where you have to be. So maybe a little bit of maturity shown since the last time he was asked that question.
Now, you can disagree with me. Stroman's a guy, when we first got him, I thought was a good deal. We wanted depth. It was a fine signing. I still don't think the money is anything crazy from the time we signed him. But I am shocked that we are now over a year with him as a Yankee, and he hasn't had any real spats with the media or the Yankee fans.
I think, if anything, he's been a great clubhouse guy. Like
he's had a blow up with every team he's been with.
When they were riding high last year, and I forget what moves were made that he was no longer on the roster, that he wasn't in the clubhouse, there was a different vibe in that dugout. And I listen, I mentioned Bellinger might be the most important player to the Yankee season. Marcus Stroman could be the most important pitcher to the Yankee season, because right now he's their 3rd guy as we open the season. Heel won't be back till July. Schmidt probably closer to April, the way that Boone talks about him, and the way the Yankees just don't rush guys back. If Stroman can just be solid, that would be huge.
Yeah, I think Stroman's a very big wild card for this team. I just really hope he steps up, because the Yankees do have a chance in a weak AL to still make noise.
I also want to say, not just Stroman step up, but that infield behind him needs to step up, because Volpe was a Gold Glover, not his best defensive season last year, not his worst. I wouldn't call him the problem. Gleyber Torres, obviously, the Nationals didn't even want him to play second base for them. Jazz Chisholm back to second. Is
phenomenal defender?
Yeah, he's, I would say, good. I wouldn't say great, but great in comparison. It looks like Oswaldo Cabrera will play third. He's a solid defender. Goldschmidt's a good defender at first. So there's a good infield now behind Stroman. And not only that, there's a put-together outfield. I have some question marks around Dominguez in left field.
He's been playing better of late.
But Stroman's a ground ball guy. So pretty typically, it's an infield play. But,
we're going to have the Yankees will have their best defense that they've had in years.
He could eat innings too, he's a ground ball guy.
Yeah. Well, think about it. You have Judge playing right. Judge is a Gold Glove caliber right fielder.
Mm-hmm.
Center fielder, you're going to have Bellinger with Grisham filling in. Even Dominguez might get some time out there.
Mm-hmm.
Very good defenders, Grisham and Bellinger.
Yep.
Now Dominguez, like you said, he's learning left field. He's been playing better. Pereira is also going to get some play, it looks like, in left field. Third base between Peraza and Cabrera. Those are two very, very capable defenders.
And Peraza's got an arm on him too.
Yeah. even Wells behind the plate, his biggest knack coming up through the minor leagues was
He just doesn't take his mask off.
well, also they thought he was going to be a Kyle Schwarber type where he wasn't going to be able to catch in the major leagues.
We'll talk about the lineup. I think he
Yeah.
is poised to be a Kyle Schwarber type. They got him leading off every game.
And he's playing really well as leadoff, but Wells.
That was not on my bingo card.
No, that was not. But just coming up through the minors, they thought that he wasn't going to have his defense be able to play, and he'd have to move to corner outfielder, first base, that his bat would be the thing that carried. And last year, his rookie year, it was his defense that really made a name for him, and his bat came a little later, it lagged behind. But he became a very solid guy, a guy that I'm not worried about catcher. I'm worried about backup catcher just to give him days because we saw how gassed he got at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And Boone, for somebody who we rag on, everybody rags on giving way too many days off. He just doesn't do it for like Volpe and Wells. Like his young
They're
guys.
young.
But
Yeah,
they're young.
expect Dominguez play a lot too.
But they're young, but when they're struggling and you can see them having that, toll taken on them, give them a day or two to regain. I just don't understand it because we've seen Volpe after he gets like 2 days off, he goes on a streak.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about that lineup a little bit because Wells leading off, right? Judge is going to hit 2, Bellinger 3. Are we thinking?
Yeah, RotoChamp has it. Wells 1, Judge 2, Bellinger 3, Goldschmidt 4, Chisholm 5, Volpe 6, Dominguez 7. They have Ben Rice as the opening day DH projection 8, and Oswaldo Cabrera batting 9, playing 3rd. That's obviously without Stanton in the lineup, but
right.
I don't know when he's coming back. So that's a lineup to look at and think this is going to be what we see. Question marks at the bottom. Volpe, Dominguez, Rice, Cabrera, baby bombers. Who's going to produce?
Rice has been having an amazing spring, hitting the ball harder than he ever has in his life.
Yeah, and you get 2 of those guys to produce at a good level. That's a lineup you could certainly work with. Again, how much production do you get from the top of that lineup? What does Jazz give you? What does Bellinger give you? What does Wells do as a leadoff? Those 3 big lefties. What do they give you?
Yeah.
I love the lineup construction in terms of lefty, righty, lefty.
Yes.
Like that
Although
is
Goldschmidt can't be your 4-hitter. I just think that he's too. I would rather.
You'd rather Bellinger, Jazz, Goldie,
Bellinger, Jazz, Goldie, or honestly Bellinger, Jazz, Dominguez, Goldie. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd imagine they're going to give Goldschmidt the opportunity to open.
Sure,
and
at least let him open.
Because obviously the goal in an ideal world is Wells, Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, Jazz, Goldschmidt. This is where not having Stanton is a big problem. Haven't heard anything. It's a double elbow injury.
Well, no, but now he's got a calf issue as well, and they're saying, but that gave us a timeline of Memorial Day weekend possibly, which is much earlier than I even anticipated.
I have no clue what's going on, and we'll talk about it when we get to predictions. This is where my confidence in this team to make the playoffs is still extremely high. My confidence in this team to compete for a World Series, I need another move. And it could happen at the deadline, but I can't. When I'm looking at where things stand today, the prediction is going to reflect that, not what I hope happens.
Yes. Well, so let's go to the predictions right there. Again, we're not going to have Ben's prediction for this one. We'll get him next week when we talk some NL East. He's going to give us his AL East predictions.
Yep.
But John, since you're not the resident AL East fan, I'm going to start with you, but let me kind of run through PECOTA like we have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
PECOTA has Baltimore winning the division as of today, 88-74.
88 winning this division. My goodness. What are we, 88, 87, 86, 85?
So Yankees and Blue Jays tied. Yankees get the nod, 85-77 in second. Blue Jays, 85-77 in third. Rays, 82-80 in fourth. Red Sox, 80-82 in fifth. Very close division. 8 games separate first and last. I don't know if I agree with this, but John, who do you have winning the division?
Yankees.
Dylan?
I have the Boston Red Sox winning the AL East in the
I do
regular
as well.
season.
I also have Boston. I just think that they have the possibility to be the most consistent team.
I think the lineup's deeper. I think they have the best pitcher. And at the end of the day, I think the Yankees bullpen will be more of a strength in postseason play
Yeah.
and in smaller series. But I think Boston's lineup and the top of that rotation and the back end of their bullpen is built for regular season success.
Now, second place, John, what do you got for us?
I have the Red Sox.
Dylan?
I have the Yankees finishing in second here. I do still think their pitching is the best in the division. But I think there's a lot of young guys and new faces that need to gel in the lineup, and it's going to take some time.
I have the Orioles in second. I do think that the youth movement there is going to have to take hold. Jackson Holiday, Kobe Mayo, you have Gunnar Henderson, Colton Cowser, Grayson Rodriguez. A lot of young guys need to take that step forward. And to be honest, they don't have the injury issues that the Yankees are facing. And now this would be very different if Cole, Heel, Schmidt, Stanton were available
Yeah.
at some point this season. That if they didn't have those injury question marks, if Will Warren and Carlos Carrasco weren't going to be in our opening day rotation,
Well, for somebody who crapped on Will Warren last
lot.
year,
a lot.
he looks pretty good in spring training. It's just spring, so
just
we'll
spring.
see what happens when he gets out there. But
Michael King,
he might make me eat my words.
I hope he does, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
But
buy a jersey.
Maybe he's this year's Luis Heel. Fills in for Garrett Cole and kind of just takes it by storm.
We'll see.
But third place is where I have the Yankees.
Yeah.
Definitely still a playoff possibility. I just think that if they don't get healthy, it's an uphill
I'd be
battle.
shocked in the AL if they didn't make the playoffs.
It's just an uphill battle to really be a contender with the injuries, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming you both have Baltimore in third?
I have Orioles third. I just think they didn't do enough with starting pitching. I think that's just the biggest thing.
I have Toronto third. I think there is a collapse in Baltimore.
I don't think there's a collapse.
We just talked about it. They are one Zach Eflin injury away from 5 days a week having to put up 6 to 7 runs to win games.
They can do that though.
They can. But am I betting that they will? Listen, in the AL East, fourth place is 81 and 81. It's not fourth place as a 60-win team. I don't spoiler, Baltimore's my fourth. I don't have Tampa jumping them, but Baltimore's my fourth, and I think that they could be an above 500 team. The way that I see it, and we don't do win predictions, but I think Boston wins 95 to 97. I think New York wins 92 93. I think Toronto and Baltimore are low to mid 80s. And I think Tampa is high 70s maybe.
Hold on, I'm going to write this down so we can check it out.
Yeah, we can check it out.
You said Tampa mid 70s?
Mid to high.
We're going to check this out at the end of the year, how
we come back and the Tampa Bay Rays have won. Listen, if that happens, it won't be just me that was wrong.
Yeah. So I have Toronto, though, in fourth place. I really wanted to put them in last, but I just have no faith in what Tampa Bay has. I think Kevin Cash might want out at some point. It just seems like Tampa's going back into a dark hole and just to be forgotten about. There's only so much a great manager can do there. So I got Toronto in fourth, Tampa in fifth.
See, I have Toronto in fourth, Tampa in fifth. I think the Blue Jays, even though I said nothing really moved the needle for me earlier, I mean, they still did add, more players, to their team that's going to help them, like Santander and stuff. And who knows with Scherzer. But I just think, the Rays didn't really, I don't think, did much, and like you said, they're just going to be forgotten about.
All right, I want from each of you one big hot take prediction for the AL East this year.
Oh man, a hot take for the AL
Could be
East.
anything you want it to be. Anything.
Let's see. Let me look over these rosters here because I want to go hot take.
I remember last year my big hot take was what's his face to win the Cy Young for Tampa
Okay.
Bay. Pepiot.
By
Pepe,
at All-Star break, we are considering Marcus Stroman as an AL Cy Young contender. I think that's hot enough because picking him to win is out of this world, but a guy who's going to have a big role with a better defense behind him finally in New York that needs to pitch well. He knows he has the security of a good bullpen behind him. I think Stroman has a really, really solid year for the Yankees.
I'm going to say the Blue Jays become sellers at the trade deadline. Just, move Vladdy.
You think they move Vladdy?
I think they move Vladdy.
That is a good one. For me, it's going to be that somebody on the Rays hits in the top 5 most home runs in the American League.
Just somebody.
Just somebody on the Rays.
I don't know who it is. I just think playing in that Yankee Stadium type ballpark, somebody in the Rays will end up hitting in the top 5 most home runs in the American League. And I think that is a very hot take since I can't think of a single power hitter of who that should be because it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where
Yandy Diaz.
somebody's going to, what was that?
Diaz?
Could be Yandy. I just don't.
Man.
Who's going to take advantage of that short porch?
I see where your angle is now.
Yeah.
At first, I was just thinking the Rays. Why? But now I get why you're saying the Rays.
Right now, you understand the thinking behind it. Somebody's going to take advantage of that short porch and surprise us with a lot of home runs.
I gotcha.
That's going to do it, though, for us. Next week, we're going to talk some NL East, preview opening day, get some predictions in for the rest of the year. We'll get Ben on, talk some Mets, talk some Phillies with John. Maybe we have the Mets winning it all. Does Soto really move the needle for the Mets? I don't know. I really don't know. But that's going to do it here. Corey, Jason, Dylan, Mel, John, Pauline, Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast, signing off.